All right, let's take a little trip back in time to a forgotten corner of England, a place where the old magic, it still kind of hangs in the air. This is where we're going to uncover the story of the buried moon.
So our story kicks off in this huge, haunted moor called the Carland. Just try to picture it. Miles and miles of swampy, boggy wasteland, and it all just smells like stagnant water and decay. Not a pleasant place.
I mean, the desolation there is just total. The only things you'd find growing are patches of rotting moss and these weird ashy mushrooms. And the trees are all spindly with these long, grasping branches that look like they're reaching out to grab you.
Yeah, the only things that actually lived in the Carland were monsters. It was home to all kinds of bugs, these things called Bogles, and the really nasty Grindilow. The only way you could even try to get through this place was on this single, winding path that twisted through the muck like a dirty brown ribbon.
So let's talk about these Grindilows. If you were unlucky enough to take one wrong step off that path, the ground would just give way. And from that black, nasty water, these cold, tight hands would shoot out, grab your ankles, and just pull you down into the dark.
And then you had the Bogles, these shambling little goblins, all mottled green and black. They got a real kick out of other people's misery, dancing and cackling while they held prisoners captive in the moor. But here's the thing about all these creatures. They only ever came out when it was completely dark.
Well, eventually, the moon herself started to notice all the trouble brewing down in the Carland. She'd heard the stories, of course, but since the monsters always scattered from her light, she'd never actually seen them. And she decided, you know what? That needs to change.
So, one night, the moon wraps herself in her magic cloak. And this thing was incredible. It was literally stitched from an empty patch of the night sky, all inky black and soft as a whisper. She pulled the hood up to hide her glowing silver hair and made her way down to earth.
She gets to the Carland and it is pitch black. She's moving as quietly as her own light, but she can hear the monsters getting closer. The gurgling splashes of the Grindilow, the scratchy little laughs of the Bogles. And right as she reaches up to pull back her hood, her foot slips off the path.
And just like that, it's absolute chaos. Long, thin fingers of the Grindilow wrap right around her ankles. Bogles swarm her, wrestling her arms down. And for the very first time in her long, long existence, the moon actually felt fear.
But then a voice cuts through the darkness. It was a man, totally lost in the Carland, with just a tiny nub of a candle to see by. As the moon was struggling, her hood shook, and these little flashes of her silver hair caught his eye. He saw that light, and he started running straight for it.
The moon tried to shout, to warn him to stay away, but the murky water just filled her mouth. So with every last bit of strength she had, she burst free from the Bogles for just a second, long enough to throw back her hood. The light from her hair just exploded, filling the entire Carland. The monsters recoiled from the man, and he scrambled back onto the path, her brilliant glow lighting his way to safety. But while the monsters on the surface fell back, the ones below, they were not letting go. The Grindilow had tangled her feet in these gnarled roots, and they just kept pulling her deeper and deeper until her beautiful silvery hair disappeared completely beneath the dark, inky water.
And they made sure she would never, ever escape. They tied her up with these woven, snake-like branches and buried her deep beneath the moor. Then the Bogles rolled a massive stone right over the spot and summoned a dancing flame, a will-o'-the-wisp, to stand guard. The night, now, was completely theirs.
At first, nobody really noticed she was gone. The moon disappears for a bit every month, right? But as the days turned into weeks and every single night stayed pitch black, people started to get worried. The questions started popping up everywhere, in the markets, at the inns, in the taverns.
Until one night, in a tavern right on the edge of the Carland, that question finally got an answer. A man shoots up from his chair, spills his drink everywhere. It was him, the traveler she had saved. It suddenly clicked. He realized what he'd seen and told everyone his story about being saved by this mysterious silvery glow.
Now, the townspeople, they knew the Carland was a place of strange and powerful magic, so they believed his story right away. A cry went up through the crowd. "To the wise woman, she'll know what to do," and they all rushed over to the home of the local expert on all things magic and monsters.
The wise woman held up her hands to quiet them down. She knew they were dealing with some seriously dark magic, and they'd need a powerful counterspell. She gave them 3 very specific rules for their journey. Each person had to put a pebble in their mouth,
hold a hazel twig in their hand, and not say a single word until they were all safely back home.
The traveler then asked the million-dollar question, how are we supposed to find her? The wise woman's answer? Well, it was a bit of a riddle. Walk far and fearless, she told them, until you find a candle, a coffin, and a cross. So, the very next night, a group of them headed into the Carland. Protected by the wise woman's magic, they walked deep into the moor. And then they saw it. A bobbing light, the will-o'-the-wisp. That was the candle. Next to it was a huge stone shaped just like a coffin, and sprouting from the top was a cross made of gnarled wood. They'd found the spot.
Without a word, the townspeople started pushing that giant rock. And you can just imagine, from the shadows, the Bogles and Grindilows were screeching and howling, absolutely furious. But the magic of the pebble and the hazel twig was just too strong. The monsters couldn't touch them. With a huge splash, the stone rolled away.
The stone was gone, but the moon was still trapped under the water, all tangled in roots. The townsfolk weren't sure what to do. But the traveler, remembering how she had saved his life, pulled out his knife and dove right into that murky water.
He's just grasping blindly in the dark water, hacking and tearing away at the roots that held her. He came up for a quick breath, and the townsfolk pulled him out, asking if she was free. And then there was a light.
A light just erupted from the water, so big and so bright it felt like it filled the entire world. It chased every bogle out, drove away every Grindilows, and lit up corners of the Carland that had never, ever seen daylight. The light got so intense that everyone had to squeeze their eyes shut.
When the light finally faded and they could open their eyes, the Carland was peaceful and still once more, and hanging high above them in the night sky was the moon in all her glory. And that's where she still shines, keeping us safe, smiling down and lighting our way back home.